Hello everyone, welcome back to Fox 35 News. Today, we've got a bit of a different segment today. We've got a special guest on the air with us. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Mr. Ramirez.
Hi everyone, my name's Charlie Ramirez. Been a firefighter paramedic with the Orlando Fire Department for about 3 years now. Having done 3 years prior to that with the Orange County Fire Rescue. I'm also the owner of a company called Ramirez Global Ventures. And please, call me Charlie.
Well, Charlie, it's a pleasure to have you on the air with us today. And I think a good question to start off with would be, what exactly have you accomplished thus far? It's important that the audience learn about some of your accomplishments to understand how credible your advice really is.
Yeah, of course. So for starters, I'm 29 years old. My primary career has been in the emergency medical care field. I'm also a staff sergeant in the Florida Army National Guard. And I also own and operate my own business, Ramirez Global Ventures. We're an LLC that runs many e-commerce storefronts, so we sell products in all different kinds of niches based on the store, then we ship them internationally. We've grossed about $230,000 in sales this year alone, which I honestly couldn't be prouder of. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have even dreamed of finding such success.
Wow, Charlie. First and foremost, thank you for your service, and also $230,000. That is really impressive. So in terms of the emergency medical things, did being a paramedic take some higher education?
Yes, college was a huge turning point in my life, I'd say. I went to Valencia Community College for my first few semesters. Then I utilized the Direct Connect program, transferred to the University of Central Florida. I have a major in emergency medical sciences, and college is challenging, but honestly I think the struggles you endure are like nothing compared to how it feels to walk that stage at the end when you graduate. I honestly had so much fun meeting friends, learning my craft. I also did minor in music, not because it was something that would necessarily complement my career, but it's just something that I have a keen interest in. So I figured I'd take classes for that, and I'm glad I did. I really enjoyed it.
Interesting. I know that most people minor in something that relates to their major in some way, maybe complements it, but taking classes for something you're passionate about, I think that's really interesting. So Charlie, tell us about your high school life and what led you to college.
Well, that's quite the loaded question, so bear with me here. It's gonna be quite a long answer, but I think it'd probably be best to start this in the 10th grade. I was in the Marine Corps Junior Reserve Officer Training Program, or MCJROTC for short, at Edgewater High School. It's a military-funded leadership program that isn't necessarily a recruitment tool, but they use elements of the military, like wearing a uniform and everything, to teach valuable lessons like leadership, civic duty, responsibility, discipline, things like that. And I was in my JRTC class period one day when an Army National Guard recruiter, Staff Sergeant Cologne at the time, was giving us a presentation on the National Guard and the benefits they had to offer. Now I said again, this program wasn't a recruitment tool, but they did expose us to different recruiters to get us to look in the direction of the military because it is really good. It's a good path to take. And throughout that presentation, I mean, the benefits are really good. Free college with the EDD sign-on bonuses, getting paid just to go to school. But I was hard set on the Marine Corps. Being in a Marine Corps program, as well as having a sergeant major and lieutenant colonel as instructors, gave me a lot of bias towards the Marine Corps. But after some time, though, in the 11th grade, I decided that I wanted to join the Navy as a fighter pilot. I planned to use the National Guard to achieve this. They pay for my school, and I was going to transfer to the Navy as an officer after a few years, but at some point I ended up losing focus, and I still enlisted in the National Guard, but I wasn't really keeping my goals in mind. Being a young man, I let mental issues affect my performance in school, and my grades weren't very good. I was often barely maintaining a C in my classes, failed my first class in junior year, and it was in that summer after junior year that I shipped out to my 10-week basic training cycle, was most people would know as boot camp. I was with 159 other 17-year-old boys. We were all kind of feeling the same, uncertain but excited. And we arrived to that receiving building over in Fort Moore, 30th Adjutant General Battalion, and I mean, we were scared, but once we got there, we all were bonding, and it was with those guys that I could call brothers that we all push each other through, and we made it through 10 weeks, got that patch on our shoulders, and after those 10 weeks, I was leaving Fort Moore with a beret on my head and a fresh mindset. So, yeah. And unfortunately, I did lose a lot of the discipline and grit I developed at training after a few weeks of being home. I continued on in my senior year, and I did pretty badly academically. To be honest, I'm surprised I graduated, but I ended up graduating, thankfully. I then went and completed my 12 weeks of one-station unit training at Fort Moore, so I went back to the same base. Normally it's done in 22-week cycles, but I got to split it in half. And it was, the last 2 weeks were grueling. It was miserable at times, but I had a lot of new faces around, some of the same faces from the year prior. And I grew close to a lot of my new buddies, and we all pushed each other, gave everything we had, and 12 weeks later we're standing around the bonfire on our hill, and we had earned the title of infantryman, so it was great. After that, actually, which I was not expecting to do until the end of my cycle, I volunteered for an extra program that prepares avid soldiers for Ranger School. Ranger School is a special Army small unit tactics school that rewards soldiers who pass with the coveted Ranger tab that goes on your left shoulder. Very popular but hard to get. I unfortunately didn't make it, but regardless, I was one of 7 out of 170 in our company who not only qualified but volunteered to go after training, and I'm still proud of that. When I came home, I was sort of just living with my parents for a while. No job, no school, just drill once a month. Then I got hired at a place called Discovery Cove, which most people will know, as a lifeguard. Getting paid $15 an hour to watch water wasn't the most exciting job, but Discovery Cove does hold a special place in my heart. That environment just really helped me get out of my shell and just become the extroverted person I always wanted to be. And I did experience some drama while I was there for the first time, as I was more of a quiet kid in high school. I love my coworkers and the friends I made while working there. It was great, but there was still something missing. I had applied to Valencia prior to getting that job, but I hadn't signed up my classes. I was accepted, but the classes were just waiting to get picked, and I just was procrastinating so heavily. My mom noticed, and she dragged me over to West Campus, made me talk to a counselor, and it was that day that I signed up for classes. And I was uncertain, honestly. It was scary, but those steps ultimately led me to where I am right now, and I'm so thankful that my mother did that for me. I'll never forget it. I completed my first semester. It was 2 accelerated classes, intermediate algebra and the new student experience course. And I was doing it while working full time, so it was quite the difficult experience, if I had to be honest, but I was proud of myself for succeeding. It wasn't too long after that I had gone on my deployment to Africa. I saw and experienced some things I had never been exposed to before in life, and it definitely changed me a bit, but thankfully I came out of it okay. I then continued my education at Valencia for a bit, and shortly after UCF. I met lots of friends in school and in the Guard, and notably my 2 best friends, Nolan and Emerald. We all met in high school, served in the Guard together, and we still stay close to this day. During my time in school, I really decided to take my business seriously. That was a time when I really decided to lock in on that. I'd started my LLC in 2024, and I sort of was just letting it sit there, but it was 2027 at this time, and I was just hell-bent on finding success. It took months of grinding and hard work, just doing assignments, and then the night after I'd be on my laptop researching, working, investing. It was hard, but I made a breakthrough one week. It was July of 2028, and I finally had my first $1,000 week. I was ecstatic, and it just drove me to work even harder. That little taste of success just drove me. I ended up making $50,000 in sales for the year of 2028. And life had its ups and downs, and it still does to this day, but I was finally far down that path of goals I'd set for myself. I was finally becoming who I wanted to be, doing what I wanted to do, and I was so proud. Today I'm still running my business, saving lives with my brothers and sisters in the fire department, and overall just feeling content with my life. It took a lot to get here. It was no walk in the park, but it was worth every sacrifice that I had to make.
Charlie, that is truly an amazing story. and I'm really touched by the huge impact your mother had on you and how thankful you are of her. I'm sure she couldn't be happier with where you are. Now, do you have any advice for college students?
Yeah, definitely. I'd first recommend taking the new student experience course, SLS 1122. You'll buy this textbook called the Clifton Strengths textbook, and with that, you'll learn a whole lot about yourself. There's a personality test where you'll learn your 5 biggest strengths. Mine were developer, includer, empathy, positivity, and woo. And I also learned a lot of things about college, the finances, strategies for doing work, and even the science behind procrastination. I mean, I learned a lot of things. Definitely the Clifton Strengths part was my favorite, though. I learned a good bit about myself and what I'm good at, and it allowed me to utilize those things in my life later down the line. Another thing is I also recommend just using the resources that your college will put in front of you. They will always give you the resources you need to succeed. And people will tell you that a lot, but a lot of students just ignore all the help that's out there and let the stress of college demotivate them. But you've got to remember that you have no excuse to fail. Absolutely no excuse. Everything you need is there. It's provided for you. Success just needs to be important enough to you for you to actually take the steps and do the work that it takes to get there.
I couldn't agree more, Charlie. As a college graduate myself, I don't even think there's anything I could really add on to that. I'd also like to ask you, though, what general life advice would you give those watching at home?
So as simple as it sounds, never give up, ever. There were so many times I wanted to give up, times that I felt like my goals were unattainable, like I wasn't good enough to reach them. And thoughts like that are your brain's way of getting you back into your comfort zone, but you just can't listen to it. You know what they say, diamonds form under pressure, and if things are easy, chances are that you're not really growing. So hear me now, and hear me clearly. You will not reap the benefits of success unless you're willing to undergo that strenuous process it takes to get there. You need to be willing to work hard early on. You need to be willing to make sacrifices. And most importantly, you need to be willing to stand out. There are a select few people who choose to work hard in their young years. Do not follow the crowd. Be different. And just one more thing. Remember that no dream is too big. You can truly do anything you put your mind to. Anything is attainable. You just have to be willing to do what it takes to get yourself there.
Amazing advice, Charlie. Those are definitely some points I wish I would have taken into consideration in my younger years. Well, folks, unfortunately it is time to say goodbye to Mr. Ramirez. Charlie, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. We're so appreciative of the time you spent with us today.
Of course, and I thank you all for having me and allowing me to push these messages out to the people of Orlando, especially our young students. You guys are the future, our future. I also want to give a quick shout out to all the people who supported me. Mom, Sergeant Cologne, Emerald, you all aided in my development and are a huge part of why I am where I am right now. Thanks for everything, guys.
And thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I know it's pretty busy to talk with us today. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we bring you today's forecast.